Welcome to the LeaderTreks Youth Ministry Trainingcast with Doug Franklin, where we help youth workers like yourself be intentional. Welcome to the LeaderTreks Youth Ministry Trainingcast. I'm Taryn.
And I'm still Doug.
And we're really glad to have you with us today. We're jumping into a super common question and topic in youth ministry, especially youth ministry right now. It's the question of whether or not you should split junior high and high school.
And this will always be a question.
It will.
When I started in youth ministry, and I hate to say this, but in 1987, when I started in youth ministry, this was a question then too. And I think it's been a question all along in youth ministry as when do you do this? Is it best to do this? How do you do this? This is always a tough question.
Right. Let's start with the if question. Doug, what do you think about this? Should you split junior high and high school? Should you not? What are the different sides to that original question right there?
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Yes, you should always split. I think you should always split for this simple reason. A 13-year-old boy has nothing in common with an 18-year-old girl. And when you put them in the same room to do youth ministry together, one or both shut up. That's just what happens. And I've heard people debate this. I've seen books written about this. This is just my own personal experience. I don't think 12, 13, 14-year-olds have anything in common with 16, 17, and 18-year-olds. It's just a different time in an adolescent's life. You're making different decisions. Your life in a junior high versus your life when you get your driver's license is just a different world, right? And so I don't know that there's a way to construct a talk that's going to hit that 17-year-old girl just as hard as it's going to hit that 13-year-old boy. I just think about that and I think, that's not working. It's just not working. You either have to go to one group or the other. So dividing them, I think, is really important. Another thing that I think is really important is that it takes a different type of volunteer. There's a different type of volunteer that's really effective with a 13, 14, 15-year-old than the volunteer that's effective with a 17 and 18-year-old. Yes. And I think that either the adults have to grow up with the students and be their small group leaders the whole time or their mentors the whole time, or you just need a different type of flair. You need somebody who can be a Pied Piper for junior hires. Yes. Junior hires move in herds. They move in groups, and you need Pied Pipers that will act as magnets to attract them, bring them in, and all that. In high school, I think you need great mentors and listeners, people that will build really meaningful, deep relationships with students and talk about hard things. Talk about identity, talk about sex, talk about dating, talk about world views when it comes to different things, world religions. I think that's a very different type person. So, I mean, think about it this way. Junior high, you need someone who can really throw a ball hard. In high school, you need someone who really understands coffee. I mean, those are two different people. So that's the way I think about it all the time.
And I think one piece that we haven't hit on just yet is sometimes the difficulty of having junior high and high school in the same room and the group dynamic that is so difficult. You've got these high schoolers who are crazy annoyed with these junior hires, but these junior hires who want nothing more than to be in the face, to be in the same room as those high school students. And that creates a rub that, especially for some of our high school students, makes them not want to come to our youth ministry.
But I think most people know this, Taryn. So the reason that we're keeping our junior high and high school together is a logistical reason. And I think that when you ask yourself the question, when is the right time to divide? I think there's probably some things that we can just have good check off on a list. So what would you say? When is a good time to divide the youth ministry, the junior high and the high school youth ministry?
I like the idea of asking the question, do you have enough students? Do you have enough students to really navigate that split? Doug, how do you answer that question?
Well, I think that's an important one because if you split and you end up with 4 junior hires and 12 high schoolers, there's so much energy lost that the 4 junior hires are dying. So I think if you're in that kind of situation, you've got to really be prepared because most of the time what I see happen, this isn't a guarantee, but most of the time I see happen is when the junior high and the high school split, the junior high usually doubles in about 3 months. So if you split junior high and high school, you'll probably get juniors, because again, they move in herds, and the 5 or 6 junior hires that you have are going to invite some friends, or the students that weren't coming because of the high schoolers, the junior high is usually going to double overnight. The high school will usually stay the exact same size. And this is the one thing that I look at it. So a lot of times youth pastors will say, I have 15 junior hires and only 6 high schoolers. Should I split? That's a tough one to know, because if you do split, you'll grow your junior high, but your high schoolers won't grow. In that case, I would really think about having your high schoolers really begin to mentor your junior hires in some sort of program like that. So you got to have enough students, but you got to know the split will always help junior high. It won't do much for high school.
And so we asked the question, do you have enough students? I think the next question to ask when you're contemplating this decision is do you have enough leaders? Doug, what's the right number of leaders?
Yeah, that's a really big issue, because this is usually where the rubber hits the road. This one and then the next one you're going to say bandwidth. This is really, I think, the really big questions that we have to decide. So if you're going to split them, I think it starts by having a parent meeting where you explain to parents why you're doing this, and you ask junior high parents to help, because you explain to them that you think it's really going to grow. I think you've got to develop some more leaders, and I think you use this idea of if we split, we'll grow, and if we grow, we're going to need more help. I think that's a great appeal to make to your church. I also think it has impact. And people want to help where there's impact. We're going to have impact. We're going to grow what we're doing in junior high. So I think you go out there, you make that plea at the same time, knowing that you're probably going to grow your junior high and you're going to need help in your junior high. I think that's really important. But again, if you're not developing adult volunteers on a regular basis, this is going to have an impact on you across the board. So really be always developing adult volunteers. I don't have a silver bullet on developing adult volunteers, but I'll tell you what you should be doing on a regular basis is standing in the lobby or the narthex of your church or whatever you call that area everybody walks through, and you should have a big sign that says, youth ministry, and you should be there meeting everybody, because no one's going to join the youth ministry without being in relationship with you. So you got to build those relationships so that you can have the conversations with adults about being involved in youth ministry.
Definitely. And Doug, you alluded to kind of this third question, this third piece to evaluate when we're making this decision is, do you have enough bandwidth to make this switch?
Yeah, this is the really big problem, because most of the youth pastors that I see trying to make this decision are bivocational, or they're part-time, or there's something going on there. And so they get to that 25 number and they're like, we should split, but I don't know if I have the bandwidth. So this is where you've got to be reproducing yourself. So you've got to be reproducing a leader, not a volunteer, a leader, someone who can own part of the ministry. And if that person is bent towards high school, let them lead high school and you go lead junior high. If that person is bent towards junior high, let them do junior high. If you have 2 people, one's bent towards girls in junior high and guys in junior high, let them, you got to look for a creative solution in this area to multiply yourself, because if you don't have the bandwidth, then dividing the youth ministry will never work, and the youth ministry will probably stay the number that it is and decline over time. That's just a reality. So you've really got to be able to multiply yourself. It might be a college student that wants an internship. I don't know exactly how it might be, but there's got to be a creative solution to multiply yourself and your bandwidth, because bandwidth is a huge issue.
Yes. And Doug, you've gotten to do some writing on this topic in a little bit more detail, and one in another Trainingcast, as well as a blog of what to do when your ministry hits 25, and then also a recent article that we put up on our blog as well about choosing between being a youth worker and being a ministry leader, and really helping youth workers navigate moving from being the primary discipler of students to being the manager of a team of ministry leaders. So if you'd like to learn a little bit more detail on this topic of bandwidth and what are best practices, definitely take a look at those resources there.
But I do want to say this, if your tradition at your church has been they're all together, and that's why you continue to do this because you've always done it this way, boy, break that cycle, because you're going to really grow junior high and you're going to become much more effective at discipling them if you break it apart. And you're going to bring more room for high schoolers to come in and feel like it's more for them, and they need to feel personally like it's for them. Junior hires need to feel like it's corporately for them. And so when you can make that change and you can bring them in, it can make a huge difference.
Definitely. We'd love to dialogue with you on this a little bit more. If you're working on this split, trying to figure out what makes sense in your ministry, give us a call. We'd love the chance to hear where you're at, what you're thinking about, and what's influencing your decision.
And we'll ask you some good questions to really make you think about what are the obstacles that are keeping you from things, and then how do you deal with those obstacles so that you can divide, and also so that you can grow your leadership at your church as well too, which is essential.
Mm-hmm. But until then, we'll see you next time on the LeaderTreks Youth Ministry Training Cast.
See you soon.